I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who's here today. It feels like, I was thinking last night back to our very first hackathon event in August or September 2015. And we invited 10 or 15 people to our office. It was a sort of mix of friends and families and, frankly, anyone else we could get off the street to come and hack away on a bank with an API. And it was kind of weird and kind of awkward because there weren't very many of us. But what came out of that weekend, I think, was the beginning for us of our focus on community, as Richard was talking about, and more widely, our focus on crowdfunding. And seeing all of you here today and on the other stream is amazing. It feels like we've come such a long way, and I'm incredibly excited for the future. But things aren't always that easy, and I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about some of the times we've got things wrong. So this is my talk, which is every time we've mucked things up. It's really easy to feel like things are going amazingly. We recently announced our new valuation, which, for those of you who invested right at the beginning, is hopefully very good news. And the press are giving us incredibly positive and wide-ranging coverage. On top of that, we've just hit 2 million users. And we announced that about, when was this? The 20th of May, so just over a month ago. We're now at 2.3 million users, so we've grown more than 10% in the last few weeks, which is somewhat incredible. But the reason I wanted to talk about failure a little bit today was because it's really easy to think that everything's going smoothly. And I realized this when I was looking at other companies that we admire. Because it felt like within Monzo, everything we were doing was sort of chaotic, and we didn't know exactly what was going on, and things were going wrong all of the time. And then we looked at these other companies that we admire, whether that's Slack or Stripe or whoever, and it felt like everything was going smoothly, and they knew exactly what they were doing. It was only after talking to people who work in those companies that I realized that it's exactly the same in those companies too. That everything is pretty much chaotic and broken all of the time. And every company is just trying to project this image of a swan where you're sort of serene and beautiful on the top of the water, and under the bottom you're massively paddling just to stay afloat. And so I thought, while talking to our investors, it's better to share some of those failures with you and maybe talk a bit about how we go forward from there. So who knows who this is? Very well informed. James Dyson, the founder of Dyson vacuum cleaners, spent more than 5,000 prototypes creating that first vacuum cleaner. 5,000 prototypes going around and around again, getting things wrong before finally he got to this amazing bagless vacuum cleaner. That means he's now worth $12 billion US. Or Oprah, probably the most famous television host in the world, who was fired from her first job as a TV anchor. The network thought she was dull and stiff, and so let her go. And so while writing this talk, I posted on our Slack asking for examples of all of the times we'd got things wrong, and I was hoping, no one would really post anything, but it seemed like there were lots of memories of times that have gone wrong. So I'm going to sort of take a rapid-fire tour through a few of them, some hopefully just relatively funny, and some more serious ones. So right back at the beginning, the early days of Monzo, for those of you who invested in our first crowdfunding will remember this very, very well. Early 2016, we very excitedly launched our first crowdfunding event to raise £1 million and promptly crashed Crowdcube for 4 days. It was a relatively stressful week as they go, and we eventually cobbled together an alternative and managed to get through it. I think that was our first realization that we couldn't just sort of run into every project that we did without thinking through the consequences. And so the next week we launched our beta, which was the first time that people could receive a card in the post. Did anyone get a Mondo Alpha card right at the beginning? 2 or 3 people. So you came to our offices and met us in person to get a card. And then we were very excited we were able to finally put cards in the post to you. Quite revolutionary. So we launched our app with a waiting list for the first time that meant that you could sign up and get it. And every single person who opened it on launch day saw that 0 people were in the queue. And it turned out that we were relying on a URL shortener there, which would allow you to invite friends to bump yourself up the queue, that had a rate limit of a couple of hundred API calls per minute, which we swiftly exceeded and broke the app. So that was the week after crowdfunding. So it wasn't a good start to 2016 as they go. And unfortunately, we got to the point where the media started to pick up on that. And then let's talk about outages a bit. For those of you who've been with us for a while, especially those of you who signed up at the beginning, you'll be very aware that things haven't always gone smoothly when you're trying to make your payments with Monzo. And that was most evidenced in August 2017, when we had probably one of our biggest outages, and people couldn't make payments for a whole day, which for your bank is up there in the list of things that you need to be able to do. And this became a bit of a running theme for those of you on the prepaid card, where often a payment processor that we used, but sometimes also our systems, would fall down and leave you without access to your money. We still feel that today very keenly. When we do surveys of both prospective and current customers, over and over again, one of the things that they say stops them from using only Monzo is that they worry about outages like this. And that's not just in the past. This is a screenshot from the Telegraph a few weeks ago, when we had an issue with faster payments, and about a quarter of incoming faster payments would fail. It's not quite accurate from the headline point of view, because people's wages don't get paid through faster payments, but I think the message is really still the same, that even today, we can't always get these things right. And it's easy to think, though, all of these issues are issues with third parties or the wider payment systems, but Monzo really knows how to build a great product. We make sure that we always build features that people want to use, right? And unfortunately, that's also not the case. So anyone here on Android? Yes, good choice overall. We started on iOS back in 2015, and eventually, by the summer of 2016, the crescendo of angry Android users finally forced us to create an Android app. And as one of them, I was extremely happy about this. It's very difficult to work for a bank that you're not allowed to use. And so we had this genius plan. We didn't have any Android engineers at the time, but we knew we needed an app. So we started hiring Android engineers. And alongside this, we decided to hire an agency to build out the first version of that app, the waiting list part. And it was going to work extremely smoothly. We would release the waiting list. People would join, be very excited, invite some friends. And then we would have also hired some engineers who would get started pretty quickly. And within a week or two, we'd be releasing features behind that waiting list so that no one was waiting for too long. What actually happened was we failed to hire any Android engineers for 3 months. And so we had an app in the Google Play Store that was just a waiting list. And when you got to the top, that was it. Our 1-star review on the Play Store took a long, long time to get back up. And then more recently, we've been talking a lot about the marketplace. And right from the very beginning, we've had this very clear vision that we want to build a marketplace where we bring the best providers and products and services into Monzo so you can access them all with just one tap. Very clear vision. And today, that works very well. You can now open a savings account provided by third parties. You can switch your energy bills all within Monzo. But this was our first attempt a couple of years ago. This was a very hidden web page that you could get to from the Account tab. And if you tapped on one of these, it would literally just take you to the website of an energy provider. Unsurprisingly, people didn't like that one very much. And then beautiful Monzo Me, which is the one that I feel very sad about personally, because it feels like something that should be magical. That you can create a link, monzo.me/Tristan Thomas, and send that to anyone, and they can then pay you money. And for the geeks of us internally, that felt like the future. that you could collect money from anyone with just a link. It turns out we were about the only ones who really liked that. And so now, although we still have it, there's a very small portion of our users who use this every day. So, a few silly ones for you, and then we'll get on to some slightly more serious ones. So, this was probably the most embarrassing. In early 2016, I think, we ran a campaign around Old Street where we printed off thousands of these leaflets. And we gave them out, or we were prepared to give them out in the morning, until someone noticed we'd spelt our own web address wrong. And it's either Monzo or Moanzo, depending on how you pronounce that. So we swiftly had to buy that domain name, and you can still access your online banking through moanzo.com. Or this time, this was from that thread I posted where Andy Smart, our lead mobile engineer, broke all push notifications for everyone for a whole day. And one that I was personally responsible for. In 2016, I was working as a product manager. We had 2 product managers at the time. And the lead went on holiday, so it was just me. He'd gone on holiday for 2 weeks for the first time and left with very strict instructions about what we were to build. It was very, very clear. So he went away on the Friday, and on the Monday, we decided to totally ignore them and build an integration with Siri so that you could send money with your voice. It sounded extremely fun. We thought everyone would love it. It would help us go viral, and Apple might feature us on the App Store. So we spent 2 weeks building this integration with Siri. And it turned out that it didn't work very well, that Apple didn't feature us on the App Store, and that in the end, no one really used it at all. So at least our head of product got to say, "I told you so," to me at the end of that. A couple of big ones, and then I'll finish on my personal favorite. So part of that Old Street campaign, we took over Old Street Tube Station. We put adverts up all of the escalators and on the platforms, spent tens of thousands of pounds, and I think about 100 people signed up as a result of it. As ROI goes, it was not very good, but hey, at least we got a fun GIF out of it. And more recently, many of you will know, we applied to get funding from RBS's Remedies Fund, which was set up in the wake of the 2008 financial crash. And we applied for something called Pool B as part of that. That was funding that was available to new entrants who weren't currently in the business banking market. The maximum grant from that was £50 million. And unfortunately, we didn't get it. And with the wonderful benefit of hindsight, I think this was a very simple mistake from our point of view, because Pool A, which was much, much bigger, the biggest grant there was £100 million, was open to anyone who had a business current account. And in that, we would have had a much larger chance, we think. And in hindsight, all that needed us to do was to launch 10 business accounts last year, in December last year, rather than in April of this year, which for us would have been relatively easy. So that's a slightly bigger £100 million mistake. From the product side, some of you will remember when we launched the big list last year. And we'd got a banking license, and we'd converted everyone onto a full current account. It was extremely exciting. And we kind of felt like we were done. We'd built a bank. Everyone was using it. What was the problem? And it took us 3 months to realize that we hadn't built all of the right features for people, that our community was still telling us, hey, we can't make international transfers. How do you pay cash in? Simple things like this that are really necessary if you want to use us as your only bank account. But we almost got complacent, and we thought, we're done. And so it took 3 months and thousands of people telling us on customer support and on social media and on our forum that we hadn't done it, that we hadn't finished. I think the good thing is, and I think hopefully you see this as a thread, that it's not just all mistakes, that over time we will hopefully learn from them, hopefully get better, and make things right. And that's one of the benefits of having our customers, and our community so close to us. If we've got something wrong, all of you can come and tell us right after this talk, at any point in time. And so hopefully we're not just making those mistakes over and over again, but we're actually learning from them. And so on to my favorite and final mistake, which was more recent. Most of you, when you receive a push notification from Monzo, when you make a purchase, you'll get this sort of cha-ching sound that you've successfully made a purchase. About a month ago, for a few days, everyone on Android who made a purchase instead heard this.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I have a Monzo card.
That was the example video that we show you when you're signing up, trying to do that sort of awkward selfie video of, hi, my name's Tristan, I've got a Monzo card, and the push notification sound for making a purchase was accidentally replaced by that. So I like to imagine hundreds of thousands of people making their Tesco purchases and hearing that over and over again. Thank you very much.